I'm Tracy with MeatRx. We're here with another success story for the podcast. We have a very special guest, Mark, with us. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
And he's going to tell us about his success story on carnivore. Can you begin, Mark, by telling me like what your diet was like and your health conditions before you started carnivore?
Yeah, sure. My diet, like many Americans, was sort of this sad diet where I ate lots of carbs and low fat. I was taught that you want to stay away from saturated fats, and I still eat meat, but I would eat like leaner cuts, and I would eat chicken. My diet wasn't I didn't eat a lot of packaged foods, but I certainly ate a lot of rice and potatoes and vegetables and lean meats. And I'm sure there was a lot of seed oils in there because I would eat all these sort of salad dressings that had soybean oil and chips fried in canola oil. So that was sort of my diet leading up to carnivore. It would have been on the healthier side of the SAD diet, because mostly it was fresh vegetables with starch and some lean meat. So anyway, I didn't really have any great medical conditions that I cured with the carnivore diet, but I did have some significant changes that occurred when I did switch to the carnivore diet. One of the major things I had was an arthritic hip. I was slated for a hip replacement about 2 years back, and that's when one of the reasons I went on carnivore was to maybe hopefully address that and cure that. I wasn't holding my breath or anything because it was pretty far gone. So that was one of the big health issues that I had, and I've since had a hip replacement, and that's gone really smoothly, and hopefully some of that is because of my carnivore diet. Other health issues, or the health issues that I cured or got rid of, are things that I didn't really realize I had. I thought they were sort of the normal things that after 40 years or whatever, 50 years of eating the American diet, these are just things that you dealt with. So like bloating and frequent bowel movements and other minor things that went away when I went carnivore. So I mean, I can go into those now. I guess the big one when I started is the digestion got so much better with carnivore diet. How I got into carnivore was kind of through fasting. Once I turned 50, I realized that I wasn't going to be linebacker for the Broncos ever again, or ever. So I had all this weight on me, and I thought, oh man, I'm going to have to. I need to trim down. And the other thing is that I had to. The doctor said you need to go get a colonoscopy, and I thought, okay, let's go do that. And I went in, and in the morning they said, hey, you have to fast before the colonoscopy. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that sounds odd. I don't really want to do that, but okay. And then they came back and said, well, you can get in tomorrow morning, but you can't eat any more. You're basically fasting for another however many hours. So this would have been over a 24-hour fast. And back then would have just been like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to eat for 24 hours, 25 hours. So I went down that road, and I ended up fasting, and I got the colonoscopy, and I didn't take any anesthetics, and they did it. It was definitely not fun. But after that, I felt great. And they came and they took my blood pressure, and they said, oh, you're free to go, or whatever, you're allowed to go. Because I guess they make you stick around after that, because a lot of people's blood pressures and heart rates are out of control. But I was just fine right after. And I went out there, and she said, yeah, the nurse said, oh, now you can go eat a big meal. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go eat a giant meal right now. And I went into like Starbucks and ate a muffin, and I thought, oh, I feel fine. I actually feel really good. I'm really clear-headed. So I went down this whole thing about fasting, and which led me to Jason Fung and all these great people that you find online when you start going down this rabbit hole of diet and everything. So I eventually started listening to people on fasting, and then fasting led me to the Carnivore Diet, and I got on to ShawnBaker from the Joe Rogan podcast, and I also saw people like Amber O'Hearn and Kelly Hogan, and these are the kind of people that they're sort of the OGs. They've been doing it for a long time, and I thought, oh well, they're fringy and weird, not weird, but and then you see ShawnBaker, and he's this giant freaking dude who's full-on athlete. He's a doctor, and he's talking like, I only eat meat. And I thought, this is something I think I should try. So I tried the Carnivore Diet, and I told my family, hey, look, I'm just going to try this for a month and see how I feel. And here I am, almost 2 years later, and you just notice the benefits almost immediately. I had this sort of mucusy drip in my nose that I didn't really realize when I was on the SAD diet, and it was sort of green and gross, and I would sort of blow it out and when I brushed my teeth at night. And I didn't think much of it. And it would impair like one side of my nose or the other, and I wouldn't be able to breathe. But when I went carnivore, it just went away. I don't notice it at all anymore. And I thought, well, okay, that could just be, that could just be something that I finally got rid of. But it has not come back for the whole 2 years since I've been on it. So I'm gonna have to chalk that one up to the Carnivore Diet. So I do much more nose breathing. My nose is always clear. It's great. So I sleep with my through my nose, and when I exercise, it's mostly bleeding through my nose. So that was a great one. And I talked about the digestion, and also the skin. I didn't really think I had any skin issues, and I didn't. But you can see my head's nice and shiny. But my skin's definitely more sort of elastic, and it doesn't sort of crumble and chafe when I scratch it. And I would sometimes get calluses on my feet that would crack, and that's gone. I don't even get that anymore. So I think it makes my skin more, I don't know, softer. So yeah, all you ladies listen out there, Carnivore Diet. So I guess that was a good one. One of the thing on the digestion is when so I got into fasting, like I mentioned earlier, and I was doing the intermittent fast. I still do intermittent fasting. But when I started intermittent fasting, I kind of went on a 20 hours of no eating and a 4-hour eating window. So I would eat these giant sort of salad, vegetable mukbangs with meat and everything. I would pound all these calories into my body with all this fiber, and I would just get so bloated. I have to go lay down, and I just couldn't wait till to poop it all out. I would just be like, actually, I would have to go sit on the couch or lay on my back, and sometimes I would get these energy spikes like crazy. If I had if I had too much carbs, it would feel like my heart was pounding out of my chest, like I needed to go run a marathon or something. So I'd be laying there bloated, but my heart would be saying, get up and run around. And it felt wrong. And that's kind of how I got into the carnivore as well. Because I was just like, this just doesn't seem right. Because I would get super gassy. I felt sorry for my wife, because, every night I would just be this gassy mess, processing all this fiber or whatever it is. And then in the morning, like clockwork, I'd just take these giant poops, and it would just be a mess. And I would take, maybe 2 or 3 more throughout the day. And now it's about, 3 or 4 times a week is what my bowel movements are, and they're clean and they're tidy and they're small. Like the volume on carnivore of the bowel movement is just so much less. So it just tells me that I'm digesting more of the food that I eat. Mm-hmm. And when I was eating,
on your fasting, you did say you do intermittent fasting.
I do now.
Yeah. And did you ever do any longer fasting, or did you just?
Yeah, definitely. When I haven't done a lot this year because I had the surgery. I just kind of wanted to see. I just wanted to stay sort of normal. And I know actually that I did do a couple fasts after the surgery, but lately I've been trying to bulk up a little bit. But yeah, I did a lot of block fasting. So I would do 3 or 4 day fasts, and I would do that about once a month. So I do my intermittent fasting, and then once a month I do like a 48 or a 72, and then sometimes more. Maybe twice a month I do a 36-hour fast, and I really like the fasting. It's not just the there's definitely a spiritual and mental component to fasting that I didn't really know existed. And when you get into a 3 or 4 day fast, that 3 or 4 day, your mind goes to some interesting places, very grateful and happy, and I don't know, it's interesting. It is a little painful, to start. You got to like put mind over matter, and there's been a lot of research on it. Of course, the autophagy. This Japanese doctor got the Nobel Prize in 2016 for his work on autophagy and how fasting sparks it. So those benefits are there as well. But yeah, there's also that mental benefit that I found. And of course, you give your gut a rest. I mean, to me, it's like everyone's like, oh, you work out so hard, you need to take a rest, or you're working so hard, take a rest. But nope, not when it comes to eating. We should be pounding food into our gullet as soon as we wake up and right before we go to bed. But fasting gives your whole digestive tract a break, and it's amazing. Everything just calms down, and I think that's one of the huge benefits right there. Is just giving the system a little bit of a break without pounding all that food through it. So yeah, fasting was a big thing, and I still do it now. I find that I don't need to go sort of as long, so I do I guess I do a 16-8 or more like an 18-6. So I start eating about 1:32, and then I wrap everything up at around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, whatever that adds up to. But my first meal, carnivore meal, is a big meal. I'll eat like a steak and a bunch of eggs and a big bowl of bone broth and some liver, and that'll be my first meal of the day. The second meal will be dinner, and that'll be maybe a steak and some bacon, but it's mostly beef at this point, and it's pretty boring. But I don't think it's boring. It just, in fact, I'll be looking forward to eating a steak and some bone broth after I wrap this up. So yeah, that's another benefit of the whole carnivore diet that I didn't realize was going to happen. It's just it frees up so much of your life, and it makes life eating so much simpler. I don't there's not a lot of spices in my cabinet anymore. I don't have to buy sauces and all these things, and meat in the freezer, it's so much more efficient. I used to throw away bags of rotten groceries that I just couldn't get to, rotten produce that I couldn't get to because I was eating all these salads. You had to have all the colors of the rainbow. You wanted all the different polyethanols or whatever. So, I was eating beets and leeks and kale, and I would mix it all in, and, you end up throwing that stuff away. And that stuff's not cheap either. Everyone says, oh, meat's expensive, but if you're buying all these different vegetables and they're organic and they're expensive. So yeah, that part is a great benefit in a lot less time. I throw a steak on a grill, and 5 minutes later I'm eating, and then there's no mess. I put salt and pepper on there, and I move on. And after I eat my big meal, I don't feel bloated. I can go out and pound my exercises and do whatever I want right after I eat. I don't often do that, but I can. I can get back to work. Obviously, I do that, so I'll eat my big meal and off I go. It's the power or the energy that you get. I guess it's ketosis or whatever, or it's close to. But it's just a sort of a smooth power that you have all day long, smooth energy, versus when I would eat these, big meals when I would have a lot of starch or whatever. I guess it's the insulin spike or whatever, but your heart would feel like you just wanted to jump out of your chest. And then, of course, 2 hours later, you're sort of dizzy and tired, and you need another load. Yeah. But with carnivore, I cruise on. I haven't eaten since 8 o'clock last night. It's about, going on, it's only 9:30, but I still feel normal. I usually, when I work out fasted. So I like to work out, a good 18, 20 hours after eating. Well, 16, 18, yeah, something like that. Okay. So yeah, those benefits of fasting and along with carnivore really have changed my life. And as far as recovery, we were talking earlier about my hip replacement. I just had that hip replacement, and when I first got diagnosed, they said, yeah, your right hip is pretty bad. You're going to need a hip replacement. I'm 55. I'm not only 50, but I'm 55. You're pretty young for a hip replacement. So I was pretty bummed out. That's one of the reasons that got me onto the carnivore diet, was to hopefully mitigate that. It didn't really work on the right side, but they told me, hey, your left side's not far behind. You're going to need a replacement there probably. But when I went in and got x-rayed after they put the replacement in, they said, oh yeah, no, your left side looks pretty good. You should be okay. And I thought that was odd, because they made a point of telling me that it was going to need a replacement. So I don't know, maybe the carnivore has helped me out on my left side. I'll have to research that a bit more, but yeah, as far as recovery goes, I was back doing what I like to do. About six weeks after, having the replacement, I was back, doing exercises, and then now it's been about 3 months, and I'm basically normal, hopping and jumping and working out and doing all the things I like to do. So I think the carnivore diet is definitely aided in my recovery.
Wow, that sounds great. I was going to ask you, like in your carnivore diet, do you include like any milk, any seafood?
I eat lots of seafood. I don't drink milk. I guess milk has sugar, so I approach this from a zero carb thing. So I don't eat honey. I don't drink milk. I do eat dairy. I'm no expert, but I think when you have fermented cheese, it gets the lactose out of there, and you're left with zero carbs. So yeah, I eat cheeses. I don't drink milk. What was the other question that you asked?
If you had seafood or
right, seafood. Yeah, so I mix a lot of seafood in there. I live in Hawaii. We get really good poke here. So you can go into any grocery store and get, like a pound of poke, fresh or frozen ahi, which is raw. So I eat that, 3 or 4 times a week. It's really accessible. And we do a bit of fishing, and we do actually do a bit of hunting as well. So I get a lot of fresh fish and fresh deer meat that we get. And that's another thing. After going carnivore, I started hunting, and you get closer to your food source. I think everyone should go hunt and gut an animal, and then realize where those calories come from and what it takes to get it. It's not easy to go out and hunt something, or fish. It's a lot of work, and it sort of ties into the whole ancestral part of going carnivore, which I thought is really interesting. And I've listened to people like, Paul Saladino is a great source, and he interviewed Mickey Van Dor, who's this, he's an anthropologist, and they talk about, the early ancestors killing these megafaunas, which are much bigger than the animals that are today. And, they'd have these animals, they'd have to group together, use their human brains, and that's one of the reasons why they thought, the brain grew so big. So anyway, yeah, I eat a lot of fish. That was a tangent. Fish, and I eat a lot of organ meats. A lot of that's available. I get liver regularly. I get tripe, and I get tendons, which I like to mix into my bone broth. They're really high in collagen. They make it kind of creamy. And I'll throw tripe in there, which is kind of just tastes like squid to me. I eat a lot of squid too. We get a lot of different types of fish. So that's a big part of my diet as well, but it is mostly beef on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, fresh fish, definitely 2 or 3 times a week. And no milk, but dairy. I eat dairy. So I eat a couple of slices of cheese, maybe as a kind of a dessert, kind of thing. When I first started carnivore, you kind of like think, oh, this is crazy. Well, am I losing you?
I think you're back now. Whoops. Maybe not.
Is that someone's calling me? I gotta end that. Whoops. Okay, there. Yeah, when I first started, I thought, oh no, this is crazy. This is such a limiting diet. I'm gonna have to eat, chicken and pork, and I'm gonna make it 3 times a week. I'll get lots of fish. So I went out and bought all, I was making sure I was gonna have this great big variety. Mm-hmm. And I would make this, we have Kahlua pig here, which is sort of a smoked pig, pulled pork. And I would make a big pot of that, and it felt really good going down, but I would get kind of woozy and sort of not so happy after that. And so I sort of migrated away. And then my wife likes chicken, and she would cook chicken, and it would be so dry. And I just stopped enjoying it. So I kind of eliminated both of those. I still eat some bacon, and I like eggs. Mm-hmm. So I'll eat eggs, but chicken and pork, yeah, it really sort of, I don't really care for it so much anymore. And it's weird, and I'm a foodie. I love food. I used to love going and eating and exploring different foods, which I guess it makes this diet easy and hard at the same time, because I'm always looking forward to eating a juicy steak at lunch. I haven't got tired of it yet. And I do miss the whole going out and eating and that whole social aspect. But I don't. A lot of people have problems saying, "Oh, well, how can you go out and eat? Everybody wants to, go to the Chinese restaurant." I say, "Let's go." I just sit there and I'll drink tea and I won't eat. Once you start fasting and eating, I don't mind. I'll go 24 hours on a drop of a hat. Okay, I don't need to eat. I'll just fast for a little bit, and everyone else can eat. Unfortunately, people get sort of annoyed with you, and I suppose I'd get annoyed with me. You just sit there and drink, and you're not eating. But I'm happy to go to any, sort of function where there's, the food is not carnivore. I just won't eat. I don't have to. Making sure that I am able to eat with everybody else. So that aspect of carnivore, I guess it kind of messes with the family a little bit, because when the wife wants to go eat somewhere, I say, let's go, but she says, well, you're not going to eat. And I go, well, I mean, what's the big deal? I'll still be there. We can still talk. Anyhow, so yeah, that's one of the things about the carnivore diet. It's like so much more simple.
Yeah. And so your wife is not carnivore. Are you the only one in your family that is?
I am the only one. I'm trying to convince my boys, and I got my younger one. He kind of goes low carb. But my older, he's skeptical. So I would really, I want them to stay away from these seed oils. I mean, from what you go down this rabbit hole of diet, and the person who really red pilled me was Nina Teicholz. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she wrote the book, The Big Fat Surprise. And when I heard her she did a YouTube podcast, I immediately went out and bought her book. And it's really amazing how the American diet came about. When you read about the people who sort of founded it, the Seventh-day Adventists and Kellogg and Graham, and how the Heart Association was in cahoots with these people, and these seed oils that have come about just in the last 100 years have never really been vetted as healthy, and we're pounding them into our gut. And I try to keep my sons away from the seed oils and the processed carbs. Everybody seems to know about processed carbs, and yet they're like, yeah, sugary drinks are bad, but these seed oils are bad as well. And we've only been consuming them for about 100 years, and now they make up the majority of the fats in the American diet, which to me is scary. Mm-hmm. From what I've read and listened to, is that they oxidize in your body. And there's people like Dr. Chris Kenobi, and Ivor Cummins, and all these people online that you listen to. And there's a lot of new information coming out. And a lot of these people put their careers on the line, like Tim Noakes and Gary Fettke, and they dared to question the dogma, and they, like Tim Noakes was a high, the powers that be wanted to strip him of his license. And Nina Teicholz, came around, and people like Nadir Ali, who's a cardiologist, and he prescribed this low fat, and he's now high fat. So the people that I really like are the ones who dare to sort of question their own people, like doctors. Dr. Barry is a great example. There's just such a good resource of people who are out there, and Dr. Baker, of course. I mean, he's the man. you know, he's put this whole, you know, sad diet on its head. So yeah.
Yeah, well, Mark, that is just an incredible story, even though you act like you didn't really have any conditions.
A story.
What was that?
It's a story. I don't know if it's
Story?
that
Yeah.
fantastic, but
Well,
it's a
it
fun
is.
journey.
Yeah, it is. It is a fun journey, and just to hear that, you know, you were able to heal from several things actually, and maybe things you didn't even realize you had, but that was great.
Exactly.
So do you work out quite a bit?
Yeah, I'm pretty active. I'm recently retired, so I got a lot of time, and I work out. I've always worked out and trained, so you know, as I get older, I find that I can't train every day, or maybe I could. I don't know. The research I've done says, you know, give your body a rest. So I do about three times a week of heavy lifting, but every day I'm surfing or kite surfing. That's sort of the exercise. That's sort of the cardio that I do on the side. So as far as, you know, lifting weights, I do that sort of 3 times a week, and then you know, some sort of activity every single day. So I'm pretty active.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mark, for sharing your story. I know it'll help a lot of people, truly. I mean, just hearing about.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, and thank you guys. That's one of the. What was that?
I was just going to say that it's good that everyone can hear your story. People really enjoy hearing the success stories, and it really helps them to decide about carnivore or to continue with carnivore, and that you've been on it for 2 years. That is a good thing too.
Yeah, you know, I watch the you know, the success stories as well, and there are a lot of them are amazing, much more interesting than mine for sure. And I'm, you know, I want to say thank you to you guys and Dr. ShawnBaker, and I think I'm grateful that I found this, and I'm grateful that you guys are out there, you know, promoting it, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. It definitely helped me. So yeah, thank you to you guys.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll be seeing you around the carnivore community.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.